the very affable and, of course, humanitarian in all sense of it, Dr. Kailash Satyarthi. He is a Nobel laureate, and there's just so much one can say about Dr. Kailash Satyarthi, because the one that
be inspired and learn from your call which you are going to give today. It's not a matter of celebration for someone like me and for many of you. When you come to know that half of the world's child laborers reside in just one region, and that is sub-Saharan Africa. When we learn that when the world has made so much progress, I'm not talking about this pandemic time. When the world had a commitment that they are going to put an end to child labor by 2025, that commitment came from Sustainable Development Goals. This is the only goal which commits to end all forms of child labor by 2025. But what have we done in the first 4 years after this announcement of SDGs, or 4 years which are before pandemic, preceding to pandemic? The number of child laborers in the world has grown from 152 million to now 160 million. The world has become richer. The world has made so much progress. And that's why I'm angry. That why Africans and sub-Saharan Africans have to pay the cost of all this progress which we are making in the world. Are we walking on the backbones of African children? No, dear friends. This is unacceptable. This is intolerable.
Because these children lack an education, protection, and care, they are often trapped in a working life of hardship. How can we change this? We desperately need more youth-led initiatives like this one to tackle the children away from a life of hardship. When young people voice out, we know from experience globally that there is a solution. I won't deny that tackling child labor is difficult in the face of persistent problems like poverty and certain deep-rooted cultural norms, and currently with the complexity associated with COVID pandemic, children continue and are at a greater risk. But a child trapped in life of slavery cannot wait for the root causes to be solved. That child needs help, and it's right here and right now. A roadmap to speed up a ban on the worst forms of child labor is an important step. I'm appealing through all of you for all our national governments, civil agencies, NGOs, including multilateral agencies, to do everything in their power to end the worst forms of child labor today. The primary responsibility, however, lies with the government of Ghana, in the case of Ghana, for Togo, in the government of Togo, for all our countries. They have the sole responsibility to support and to help eradicate child labor.
I mean, Africa has such a huge demography in terms of the youth that any attempt, any measures, any initiatives that serve to protect the future of the youth is absolutely welcome. You know, now, the biggest problem with child labor as we see it is that it robs African youth of education. And, you know, I listened intently to Dr. Satyarthi's speech and as well as Mr. Tefamare's speech. And one of the things they both mentioned was education. And let me quote something that one of the prominent leaders, you know, of the African continent said. He said, and I quote, "Education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant farmer can become a doctor. that the son of a mine worker can become owner of the mine, and a child of farm workers can become president of a great nation. That is a quote by Madiba, the great Nelson Mandela. So we know that the canker of child labor is simply one thing that takes away education. And education, once you are robbed of education, you are really robbed indeed, because education is what you need to break the cycle of poverty. And so for us as a foundation, as Youth Bridge Foundation, we are really passionate about education. And that's why we're very supportive of this initiative and this conversation that is seeking to address something, a canker that is really attacking education. We as a foundation have been around for the last 15 years. For those of you who may not know us, we are in justice, in governance, but we're also largely in education and mentorship. And we also have a continental platform. We call it the African Youth and Governance Platform. And what we seek to do, in fact, in the last 13 years, what we have sought to do is bring together a convergence of African countries, from Zambia, from Southern, Eastern, Western, Northern Africa, brought them together to discuss issues around governance and to groom them for leadership. So we have actually been able to mentor some of the prominent members of parliament in various countries, around the continent. And so that's on the initiative of our continental platform. But we have also largely been involved in education, and we think that there is opportunity for our institute, our foundation, to partner with like-minded organizations. I'm excited to hear about what Plan Ghana is doing. I'm excited about.
This comes to 1 in every 10 children in the world. This is alarming. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, UNICEF estimates that nearly 17 million children have been condemned to child labor in the last 4 years. The call to act and scale up efforts at fighting child labor could not have come at a better time. Evidently, child labor is a result of a complex web of events and circumstances. Poverty and deepening inequalities account for a great part of the cause of child labor. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has further worsened this situation, as millions of people have lost their jobs across the world. In all this, children have become the most vulnerable to the shocks of the pandemic. As a result, a lot of them are being pushed into exploitative labor to fend for themselves or support their guardians. The legacy of this phenomenon is devastating. At their age, children need education and protection from extreme conditions. Physical and psychological development, especially at the early years, are extremely important towards producing functional beings in the society. So at ASU, we appreciate this fact and are committed to ensuring that children receive the best care and protection against any stress or exploitation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity to also appraise you of the work we are doing at the All Africa Students Union. Recently, I was in Accra on a working visit. I spent time with officers at the All Africa Students Union Secretariat, and I must commend them for the amazing work they are doing. This year, the All Africa Students Union introduced a monthly newsletter as part of efforts to catalog the works of the union and to make it available for member unions and other partners. I encourage you all to access the newsletters to keep up with our work at the union. The Research and Communications Unit of the All Africa Students Union is ready to work with you all going forward. As partners and member unions, you are encouraged to share with the team your activities to be incorporated into the newsletters. Together, let us work to provide visibility for our work. Comrades, again, indeed, the year has been a very busy one for the All Africa Students Union, despite the difficulties. The union has been holding a series of webinars and other such important programs over the period. Under the 7 working groups, that is, the education and students' rights, Pan-Africanism and African culture, migration and mobility, environment and climate, gender advocacy, democracy and good governance, and capacity building, several webinar series have been organized to promote discourses on relevant matters affecting young people. Last month, on the Africa Students' Day, I had the honor to join a virtual discussion on student activism organized by the Education and Students' Rights Working Group on the back of the commemoration of the Soweto uprising, where many of our comrades were killed and some assaulted. The union organized a powerful youth-based discussion on student activism on the continent. The Pan-Africanism and African Culture Working Group also had an important conversation on Pan-Africanism and the need to reimagine the ideology within contemporary times as part of activities to commemorate the Africa Union Day. We are happy to always give voice to young people on the continent.
Unequal education divides us as people, and an equal education system is a place where the daughter of the director of whatever, the CEO, will meet with the son of the cleaner, and they will see that they are equal. They will play together, they will learn together, they will learn the same things, and they will see that they both have value. And this will also make it possible for the children of poorer people to be more willing and able to take action, to participate in the democratic structures, and to demand change and demand a political system that facilitates that. So investing in education is really what we all have to do, but particularly investing in free public education that is available to all, including the most marginalized, but also where people across financial income groups, where they meet and learn together. In my own language, we have an expression that says that equal children play best. I don't think that's right. I think what's actually the case is that if you play together, you become more equal.
A lot of students from low-income families in North America tend to not even make it to the first month of post-secondary education, let alone finishing that degree and making use of that. And that is from folks that are getting government funding.
Around the world. And if we really want to change things, it's about putting pressure on ministries of finance, country after country, to resist what is so clearly an ideological view of the world, in which the state should be as small as it can be, should collect as little in taxes, and should only provide a sort of safety net, minimal services for the population.
Just because listening to the previous panelists speaking and agreeing on so many levels, what happens is a lot of resources, due to corruption, end up not getting to young people and not getting to children. So of course it would be encouraging young people to know the avenues, or even teaching them on the avenues of accountability. See, what happened in 2018, the president of Switzerland at the time, President Alain Berset, visited Kenya, and it was a big deal because he had talked about returning wealth that's been stolen, that's banked in these foreign accounts in Switzerland, and sending them back to Kenya. And everyone was saying we should be super excited about that, we should celebrate. But fast forward to 2021, we're not even seeing any of those resources trickling back yet.
So I think my question is how we really understand the significance of this almost overwhelming problem of the system, and then how do we organize ourselves to fix it? Because that's it's part of this broader struggle. And as one of the outcomes of that struggle, the key thing would be that we would see lives improve for the most marginalized. So the first big thing, I think, for me to understand as a layperson, looking at all of these jumbles of issues together, is that in some ways, it's definitely not an accident that things are so unequal. I think that's the design of the system. That really is.
The development of the world has grown. And so if we're going to give that young boy, young girl who's coming from a place of poverty an ability or a shot at moving away from that particular place of disadvantage, it means that we need to invest in the right places. And so young people, students are looking at governments that would invest more into.
When children and young people have that dedicated support at an early age, they are much more likely to then enter school, stay in school, and pursue education, which then enables them to take on jobs where they are able to earn at a level where they're paying tax and supporting their families. So we can't do one without looking at the other. That's where I believe, but I just want to be absolutely clear about certain things. Social protection is a human right. It is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is SDG 1.3. So the duty bearer for human rights and the SDGs is states, but there is a shared duty between parents and the state for protecting children.
Again, how do you, for the youth that is listening to us right now, what advice would you want to give to the youth pertaining to their channeling of their anger at injustice into something productive?
Yes. So in my opening remarks today, a few hours ago, I have said that you are the source of power, you are the source of energy, you are the most compelling voices. But more importantly, your hearts are much more cleaner than the adult people, because you are not yet polluted as many of us. So if you raise the voice, your voices are going to be the most compelling and most powerful voices against child labor. You can use your social media. You use your social media for many things. Of course, the ASU must be having a lot of social media presence, and individually, many of you have your own, social media presence, including Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. So when you pick up your phone, think of those girls and those boys who are denied their childhood, who are denied their future, and they are working to produce wealth. They are working to produce your clothes, your apparels, your shoes, your chocolates, your footballs, and so many other things. So just think of them. And when you read something in the newspaper or when you see something on television, then feel that they are your sisters, your brothers. And you can make a difference just by using your social media in terms of creating awareness, but also protesting against those kind of situations. You can write to your governments, you can call your local parliament member or politician from any party. But more importantly, you are also a strong or a very powerful consumer. You consume so many things which are made by child laborers. So once you come to know that a company which is using child labor, then you should raise your voice against it. And even before you buy something, as a compassionate and concerned and active, responsible consumer, you can ask the shopkeeper, can you assure that these things are not made by child labor in this situation? Because that child is working at the cost of one adult job. That child is denied education in future. So as a consumer, you can play a very important role and influence the entire pattern of business in your country and globally. Particularly in global supply chains, you can raise these questions. So creating awareness, putting pressure on the politicians, as well as pressure on the companies which are using child labor, you can play an important role. But for that, you have to work in cooperation and collaboration with other like-minded young people. So ASU has national outfits and local outfits in many colleges, universities, also in countries in Africa, I know, and I have met many of them. So as ASU leaders, ASU activists, you can raise this voice as a group, as a powerful African voice, and that you can definitely make a difference.